In our trending topics this morning, an update on the controversy surrounding Dr. Seuss right now. It's all over social media and especially cable news. Dr. Seuss's publisher says it will no longer sell 6 of his books, including "And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street" and "If I Ran the Zoo" will no longer be published. It says those books portray people in ways that are hurtful and wrong.
And for those of us who grew up with these books, it can be tough to process how they could be considered offensive, but it becomes a little bit more obvious once you see it as an adult. Theodore Seuss Geisel wrote and illustrated more than 45 children's books. 6 contained racial stereotypes, like the 1937 image described as a Chinaman with a cone-shaped hat, long pigtails, and chopsticks. He's the only person drawn in yellow, and he also caricatured Arabs and Africans.
When I'm thinking about my 6-year-old son in first grade or my daughter in preschool, I want them to see books that reflect them. I don't want them to see themselves reflected as monkeys and apes from Africa. I don't think that's appropriate.
Well, Dr. Seuss's legacy isn't universally bad. He promoted equality in works like The Sneetches and The Lorax, introduced many young children to the issue of environmentalism. That's why some have said his work can be used as a teaching tool about stereotypes.
I think he's like a lot of white people, in whom I include myself, who just isn't fully aware of how racism has shaped his own imagination. I think the fact that he's trying to be anti-racist and is racist at the same time is unusual.
And yesterday was Dr. Seuss's birthday, which historically has been tied to Read Across America Day. That's why his legacy came into focus so suddenly. And we talked about this story just yesterday, but I hadn't heard of those 6 stories that are kind of being controversially discussed right now.
Yeah, I've got 2 young kids. I've never heard of them either. We have a lot of Dr. Seuss books, and I'm glad you mentioned The Sneetches, because that's like the most we are one people story of anything I've ever heard or read, and it's interesting that those 6 books that a lot of people have never heard of is causing such a problem.
Yeah. Sure. And also speaking of Read Across America Day, I don't know if you guys have ever participated in reading to kids, but last year we were able to do it in person. This year so many people were doing it virtually, so just kind of crazy also to think about last year compared to this year.